Say this 3 times, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Let it echo from your belly, not merely from your throat. Say it so your bones feel it, so the silence around you begins to tremble and turn its ear toward your voice. And God makes the impossible possible. And again, until the walls that once loomed high like silent verdicts begin to crack, until the ceiling you thought would never lift begins to bend toward the sky. Say it because your soul needs reminding. Say it because your weary feet have walked through deserts with no rain and nights with no rest. Say it because there are things that logic cannot lift, battles that strategy cannot win, mountains that brute strength alone cannot move. When the heart has shattered more than once and you've gathered its pieces with trembling fingers, when your tears have become prayers and your silence a sacred song, say it. Not to change God's mind, but to remind your spirit of what is already true. God does not tremble before odds. He does not consult statistics. He does not negotiate with fear or clock in by man's deadlines. What seems like the end of the road for man is the starting line for the divine. And if you've come to the end of your own rope, if your plans have failed you, if your hope has rusted and your dreams have scattered like autumn leaves, then, my love, you are exactly where miracles begin. Because you see, impossibility is not a wall to him. It is a window, and through it light dances in, even when you thought all the candles had burned down to smoke. God makes the impossible possible. Say it again, louder this time, bolder, not with arrogance, but with a holy defiance. Say it not to beg for proof, but to declare what your soul already knows. The winds that seem to scatter you can also carry you. The waters that rise can also part. And the closed doors you beat your fists against may have only been locked to protect you until the right time. God makes the impossible possible. It was never about your perfection. It was never about how much you could prove or earn or build on your own. The miracle never waited for your perfection. It waited for your surrender, for your eyes, even when your voice trembled, for your hallelujah in the middle of the storm, for your belief not in spite of your pain, but through it. What God does with a broken heart surrendered is more powerful than what the world does with talent or tenacity. What God breathes into a life that trusts is more potent than all the applause and all the plans ever drawn up in boardrooms and blueprints. You may not see the path, but the step you take in faith becomes the stone laid beneath your feet. You may not know how the story ends, but the page you write with courage becomes the verse someone else will read and find hope. The impossible is not a dead end, it's an invitation. It is the stage upon which God paints in bold colors, not soft pastels. It is where the resurrection happens. It is where dry bones rise. It is where seas split and giants fall. It is where prisons shake open and chains fall not by might, but by divine intention. So say it again, and this time, let your voice shake if it must. God makes the impossible possible. Even in your waiting, He is working. Even in your silence, He is speaking. Even in your weakness, His strength is made perfect. You don't have to feel ready. You don't have to feel worthy. You only need to believe, not with flawless faith, but with willing faith, with mustard seed faith, with help my unbelief faith, because even doubt in the hands of God can become the soil from which trust grows. I have seen it in faces lined with pain yet radiant with peace, in mothers who buried children and still rose the next day to love again, in men who lost everything and still gave, in daughters who were told they were nothing and yet rose with a voice like thunder and dignity like dawn. I have seen it in addicts made whole, in marriages made new, in broken bodies walking again. I have seen the impossible bow to the God who bends time, who stretches moments, who holds the universe and still leans down to catch your tears. And even when the answer wasn't what they prayed for, the presence of God was more than enough. The peace that made no sense steadied their hands. The joy that had no explanation broke through the darkness like a sunrise that refused to wait for permission. This is not theory, this is testimony. This is the lived truth of those who dared to say not once but 3 times and more, God makes the impossible possible. Speak it now over your fear, over your failures, over the doctor's report, over the overdue bills, over the relationships that look beyond repair, over the dream that died so long ago you buried it under silence, over the mirror that has stopped showing you hope and started showing you shame. Speak it not as a spell, but as a truth. Speak it not because the world says you should be positive, but because the spirit within you remembers what the world has forgotten, that the God who knit you in the secret place still holds the pattern to your purpose. You were not made for despair. You were not designed to live beneath your burden. You were not born to be small or silent. There is a fire within you that no failure can extinguish. There is a grace upon you that no grave can contain. And there is a purpose in your pain that no lie can erase. So say it, God makes the impossible possible. Not because it sounds nice, not because it's poetic, but because it is eternal truth. It is the marrow of every miracle. It is the reason your lungs still fill with breath, even when you feel hollow. It is the echo in your chest when all else is quiet. You do not need to know how. You only need to say yes. You do not need to figure it out. You only need to show up. The God who makes the impossible possible will do what only He can do. But He waits for your yes, not because He needs it, but because you do. You need to know that your voice carries weight, that your faith, however faint, opens doors, that your prayers, even whispered, thunder in heaven. And when you rise tomorrow and it still feels heavy, say it again, and the next day, and the day after that. Not as ritual, but as revolution. Not as repetition, but as revelation. God is not bound by what binds you. He is not intimidated by what intimidates you. He is not hindered by your history. He is not ashamed of your scars. He is not surprised by your failures. He is only waiting for you to believe again, even if it's only long enough to whisper, God makes the impossible possible. You don't have to pretend the pain didn't happen. You don't have to act like you've never doubted. You only have to refuse to let those things be the end of your story. Say it again, even if your voice breaks. God makes the impossible possible. For the abused child who becomes a healer, for the forgotten one who becomes a leader, for the addict who becomes an advocate, for the weary who becomes a warrior, for the quiet who becomes a trumpet, for the shamed who becomes a sanctuary. This is not magic. This is not delusion. This is divine truth. And if you believe it, not just once, but again and again, until it becomes the breath behind your battle cry, you will see it in ways you cannot imagine. At times you least expect, through means you never planned. You will see it not just around you, but within you. You will rise not because the storm ceased, but because your roots went deep into something stronger, into someone eternal. And there, impossible becomes possible. There, despair becomes a doorway. There, the end becomes a beginning. So say it again. Not for me, not for them. Say it for the child you once were. Say it for the future that is still waiting for you. Say it for the dream that hasn't died, only slept. Say it for the faith you're finding again. God makes the impossible possible. Say it, breathe it, live it, and watch the heavens move. Say it once more, not because you've forgotten, but because every fiber of your being is craving this truth. Let the words roll over your soul like healing waters, each syllable smoothing the edges of the jagged pieces life has scattered in you. And God makes the impossible possible. This isn't just a phrase. It's a declaration that reaches back to the beginning of time, when light burst forth into darkness at the sound of His voice. It's the anthem of those who've been broken and yet breathe again, whose ashes became altars, whose endings became awakenings. Speak it again, not for others to hear, but for your own healing. For the parts of you that have forgotten how to believe. For the days when your smile is a mask and your silence screams the loudest. You see, faith is not always loud. It is not always dressed in hallelujahs or raised hands. Sometimes it looks like waking up when you'd rather sleep forever. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed and planting your feet on the cold floor even when everything inside says stay down. Sometimes faith is simply breathing, one breath, then another, in defiance of despair. That too is belief. That too is the soul saying, I'm still here. I'm still holding on. I still believe, even if all I have left is a whisper. And let me tell you something holy. God hears the whispers just as clearly as the shouts, maybe more clearly. Because when all you have is a whisper, and you use it to say, God makes the impossible possible, the heavens respond. Angels stand still. The earth leans in. Because faith like that, raw, desperate, trembling faith, is more powerful than 1,000 empty declarations. Don't let the world convince you that hope is naive. Hope is radical. Hope is rebellion. Hope is the hand that reaches for light in a room full of darkness. Hope is the soul that keeps walking when there's no visible path. You are not foolish for believing. You are not weak for hoping. You are not ridiculous for praying. The very fact that your heart still longs for more, still believes there is purpose in your pain, still sees beauty on the horizon, that makes you dangerous in the best way. Because that kind of hope changes things. That kind of faith breaks cycles. That kind of belief makes the impossible possible. There will be people who try to silence you, who cannot understand how you keep going, how you keep believing. Let them talk, let them wonder. They did not see the nights you cried out when no one answered. They did not feel the weight you carried through storms they never witnessed. They do not know the sacredness of your survival. What they call weakness is your altar. What they call delusion is your divine declaration. So keep saying it, even when they mock you, especially then, because faith like yours turns ridicule into resurrection. The very stone they rolled over your hope becomes the platform from which you rise. This is not empty positivity. This is spiritual warfare. This is endurance in the face of the enemy that said you'd never make it. God makes the impossible possible, and that truth has nothing to do with what you see and everything to do with who He is. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. The God who split the Red Sea has not retired. The God who opened wombs thought barren, who fed thousands with scraps, who walked out of the grave. He is still moving. He is still writing. He is still speaking. You may not feel Him. You may not hear Him. But, oh, beloved, He is nearer than your next breath. He is working beneath the surface, beyond your sight, behind every closed door, and underneath every broken plan. His silence is not absence. His delay is not denial. He is orchestrating what you cannot yet imagine. And when He moves, it will not just be enough. It will be more than enough. Don't be surprised when the answer doesn't come in the form you expected. The healing might not look like you thought. The breakthrough might not arrive on the timeline you had drawn in your planner. But it will come. It always comes. And when it does, you will understand why the wait was so long, why the road was so steep, why the silence lasted as long as it did. There is a weight of glory building inside your waiting. There is a deepening in the delay. You are becoming someone who can carry the blessing without it breaking you. You are learning to depend not on the outcome, but on the presence. And that is the kind of faith that changes nations, not just lives. Say it again. God makes the impossible possible. Say it for the child you lost, for the prayer you've been repeating for years, for the diagnosis you haven't told anyone about, for the debt that hangs over your head like a storm cloud, for the betrayal that broke your spirit, for the hope that still flickers despite it all. Speak life over the places that feel dead. Speak love over the wounds that still bleed. Speak faith over the fear that tries to choke you. Say it like you mean it. Say it until your fear begins to tremble. Say it until your shame begins to evaporate. Say it until your soul begins to rise. And when it happens, when the impossible bends to His will, don't forget who you were before it came. Don't forget the valley. Don't forget the nights you prayed with your face to the floor. Don't forget the kindness of strangers, the warmth of a single encouraging word, the songs that carried you when you couldn't carry yourself. Let your gratitude be louder than your grief. Let your worship be deeper than your wounds. Let your story be told, not with bitterness, but with boldness. Because someone else is walking through their night right now. Someone else is on the edge, not knowing whether to hope or give up. And they will look at you, not your perfection, but your persistence. And they will find their own faith awakening. That's how miracles multiply. Not just in our lives, but through them. Your survival becomes someone else's revival. Your testimony becomes their roadmap. Your scars become sacred signs that point the way home. You may have thought this was all about you, but it never was. It was about the generations that come after you. It was about the lives you will touch just by being who you are. It was about the ripple effect of one soul who chose to believe. So don't stop now. Don't shrink back. You've come too far. You've cried too many tears. You've fought too many battles to stop short of the miracle. Keep speaking it. Keep walking. Keep believing. Even if you can only take one step today, take it. Even if all you can do is lift your eyes, do it. Even if your prayer is just, "Shut God, help," that is enough. Heaven listens. Heaven responds. The God of the impossible hears your voice, and He moves mountains for it. Not because you're perfect, but because you are loved. And His love is not passive. It is powerful. It is purposeful. It moves through time and space, through history and heartache, to reach you right where you are, right now. And one day, when you look back, when you see how it all came together, how the thread that looked broken was actually being woven into something greater, you will weep with gratitude. You will praise with a joy too deep for words. You will stand on the ground you once crawled across, and you will say, with full voice and unshakable certainty, God made the impossible possible. And that will be the beginning of a new story, a new song, a new season. So one more time, say it not just as an affirmation, but as an anthem. Say it with your whole being. Say it like the chains are already broken. Say it like the healing has already begun. Say it like the door has already opened. Say it like you know who your God is. Say it for every time you almost gave up and didn't. Say it for every night you whispered into the darkness. Say it for every piece of you that is rising again. Say it with fire in your bones and faith in your soul. God makes the impossible possible. And that, beloved, is enough to change everything. Even now, there are unseen battles being fought on your behalf. Not because you demanded it, but because God loves you that deeply. While you were sitting in silence, He was speaking to the winds. While you were crying into your pillow, He was commanding angels. While you were doubting if you could go on, He was clearing paths that you hadn't yet reached. You may not feel it in this very moment, but a shift is happening. Something eternal is moving beneath the surface of your life. The impossible is stirring. And the first sign of that miracle is not in what changes around you, but in what begins to rise within you. A resilience, a stirring, a whisper of hope that refuses to die, no matter how many times life tries to bury it. There's something about a heart that's been broken and chooses to beat anyway. There's a beauty that only comes from ashes. There's a kind of strength born only through weakness. And if you've ever known pain so deep it made you question your purpose, you're closer than you think to seeing the hand of God move in ways that will leave you breathless. The deepest valley always precedes the highest mountain. The longest night always comes just before the dawn. That is the rhythm of the miraculous. That is the pulse of divine timing. That is the truth that carries those who dare to believe in a world that has taught them to expect disappointment. So if you're tired, rest, but do not stop believing. If you're angry, speak it, but do not let it steal your faith. If you're grieving, let the tears fall, but do not bury your hope with what was lost. There is still breath in your lungs for a reason. There is still purpose in your path. You have survived every single thing that tried to destroy you, and you have done so not because of your strength alone, but because someone greater was holding you when everything else let go. God did not bring you this far to leave you. He did not call you into the wilderness to let you perish there. He is the God who leads through fire, through famine, through flood. He is the God who brings water from rocks and manna from heaven. He is the God who shows up when it makes no sense, when everyone else has walked away, when all the doors are closed and the lights have gone out. Say it again, not because you need to convince God, but because you need to realign yourself with truth. God makes the impossible possible. And what is impossible really? Is it something that cannot be done, or is it something that has not yet been seen? Is it a closed door, or is it an unopened gift waiting for the right hands, the right heart, the right time? Sometimes what feels impossible is only waiting on your endurance. Sometimes it's waiting on your yes. And sometimes it's waiting on nothing at all. It's simply part of a plan far greater than you could imagine, being prepared with love and precision beyond your comprehension. And while you wait, oh, the holy ground of waiting, you're being shaped, not punished, shaped, molded like clay in the hands of a potter, refined like gold in fire. Not because you're not enough, but because you are being prepared for more than you ever knew to ask for. God's delays are not denials, they are developments. Every not yet is creating something inside you. Depth, discernment, wisdom, compassion. Every detour is building muscle in your spirit that you'll one day need. Every unanswered prayer is training you to see beyond your own understanding. He is not just fixing circumstances, He is forming you. And oh, how powerful you'll be when you finally see what all this has been for. And yet, this is the mystery. The miracle often begins in the dark, in the quiet, in the places where nothing seems to grow. It begins when there's no spotlight, no celebration, no evidence. Just the seed of a word spoken in faith. Just the echo of a God makes the impossible possible, whispered through tears. And still, that is enough. Still, the ground splits. Still, new life rises. Still, hope is born again. It does not require your understanding. It only asks for your trust, even mustard seed trust, even shaky, broken, barely there trust. That's enough. That's always been enough. You may have wondered, but what if it doesn't happen? What if I believe and I'm disappointed again? But what if you don't believe and miss the miracle standing right in front of you? Faith is not about guarantees. It's about vision. It's about seeing beyond the natural into the supernatural. It's about trusting that what you feel isn't all there is, that what you see now is not the final chapter, that God is still writing, still weaving, still sculpting beauty from the ruins. The story doesn't end in the middle. The book isn't closed until the author says so. And that is why you can keep going. That is why you can say it again and again like a sacred drum beat. God makes the impossible possible. Some of the greatest stories ever told began with pain. Moses was a fugitive. Esther was an orphan. David was overlooked. Mary was unwed and pregnant in a time when that could have meant death. Jesus, betrayed, beaten, crucified, and yet from that very place of death came life that would transform the entire world. Do you think he has forgotten how to redeem? Do you believe for 1 second that the God who raised the dead can't breathe new life into your dream, your body, your heart, your future? You are not the exception to his love. You are the reason for it. And when the breakthrough comes, when the impossible shifts and the doors open, you will understand. You'll see that it wasn't about punishment. It was about positioning. It wasn't about rejection. It was about redirection. Every heartbreak was pruning. Every delay was protection. And all along, God was not only preparing the blessing for you, he was preparing you for the blessing. So when it arrives, you will carry it with humility, with gratitude, with wisdom. You will not boast. You will testify. And the impossible that once stood like a giant before you will become the very thing that others look at and say, if God did it for them, he can do it for me. So take heart. Rest in this truth. You are not abandoned. You are not forgotten. You are seen, known, and deeply loved. Every prayer you've ever prayed, every tear you've ever cried, every time you kept believing when everything in you screamed to give up, it matters. It all matters. And nothing, not 1 ounce of it, has been wasted. The God who makes the impossible possible sees it all, holds it all, and is working it all together for your good. Not because you earned it, but because he is good. So today, if you do nothing else, do this. Whisper that sacred truth again. Not because it's magic, not because it fixes everything in a moment, but because it anchors you in what is real. God makes the impossible possible. Say it when you're afraid. Say it when you're tired. Say it when the bills are due and the hope feels gone. Say it when you don't know what to say. Say it when your heart is broken and your strength is failing. And especially say it when the miracle finally comes, not with arrogance, but with awe, because then you will know it was never impossible after all. And in that moment, you will lift your head, your arms, your voice, and all creation will echo with your truth. What the world called impossible, God called done. What man called over, God called beginning. And you who almost gave up, you who thought you were too far gone, you will stand in the middle of your miracle and declare it with a voice forged in fire, with a heart rebuilt from brokenness, with faith stronger than fear, and God makes the impossible possible, and that will be your legacy. There comes a time in every soul's journey when all the maps are burned and the roads behind collapse into silence. A time when your wisdom fails you, your strength leaves you, and you stand at the edge of everything you thought you knew, holding nothing but the thin thread of hope. That moment, raw and unyielding, is not the end, it is the beginning. For it is in that very space where logic dies and certainty dissolves that the miraculous breathes and the whisper begins again. God makes the impossible possible. You don't need to shout it. You don't need to force belief. Just let it echo in your bones. Let it curl around your soul like light filtering into a cave. Let it become the rhythm of your waiting, the promise that carries you through the wilderness. Even now, though you may not see the fruit, something is taking root. Faith is not a feeling, it is a decision, a posture, a sacred defiance. It is standing in the rain and declaring sunshine. It is walking toward the grave and expecting resurrection. It is choosing to believe, not because the evidence is in your favor, but because your heart knows what your eyes cannot yet see. The impossible is not intimidated by your doubt. It is not offended by your weariness. It is not diminished by the days when your faith falters. In fact, that is often when it moves the fastest. When all your walls are down, when all your striving has stilled, when you finally admit you can't do this alone, that is where God meets you, not in your perfection, in your surrender. It's tempting to think you've been forgotten. that the silence means absence, that the delay means denial. But look closer, feel deeper. That ache in your chest, the one that hasn't let you quit, even when giving up seemed easier, that's the evidence. That's the ember that God is fanning. Because you were never created to carry this life alone. You were never meant to navigate the impossible by your own strength. You were designed with divine dependence written into your DNA. That's not weakness. That's design. Your inability is the gateway to God's ability. Your emptiness is the invitation to His fullness. Your surrender is the canvas for His glory. And you don't need to fake it. You don't need to wear a mask or force a smile or quote empty phrases when your soul is tired. He sees you, the real you, the one who holds the broken dreams, the unanswered prayers, the private griefs, the one who smiles in the morning and cries into the night, the one who says, "I'm fine," but carries 1,000 unanswered questions. God sees that you, loves that you, moves for that you, and He is not repelled by your pain. He is drawn to it because your brokenness is sacred ground. It is the very place where He does His greatest work. Do not despise the process. Do not curse the waiting. Every day you've walked in silence. Every moment you've carried burdens unseen by the world has been counted, recorded, treasured. Nothing is wasted. Not a single tear, not a single step. God is not just the God of outcomes. He is the God of process, the God of every small yes, every silent prayer, every halting breath of faith. You may not see the breakthrough today, but that doesn't mean it isn't coming. Some mountains don't move all at once. Some part like a curtain, slowly, revealing the light in layers. And just because you haven't seen it yet, doesn't mean the miracle isn't on the way. You've prayed, haven't you? You've asked and begged and pleaded. You've laid it all down and then picked it back up again because waiting feels like dying. But there is purpose in the pause. Sometimes God holds back the answer because the answer too soon would crush you. Because the blessing without the weight of character to carry it would become a burden. And so He waits, not to withhold from you, but to ready you. He is more interested in forming you than in impressing you. He is more committed to your soul than to your schedule. And when the time is right, the impossible will yield. The sea will part. The doors will open. The healing will come. And it will not be fragile. It will not be temporary. It will be complete. Still, the enemy whispers, "It's too late. You missed it. You're too broken, too flawed, too far gone." But lies, no matter how loud, are still lies. The truth is that God is not bound by time or mistakes. He restores the years the locusts have eaten. He redeems what was wasted. He takes what was meant for evil and turns it into good. He does not consult your past to determine your future. He does not define you by your scars, but by His. And if He could raise Himself from the dead, surely He can raise you too. So rise, even if you have to rise slowly. Rise with your questions, with your wounds, with your trembling hands. Rise with your heart still bruised from disappointment. Rise with your voice barely above a whisper. Because rising isn't about perfection. It's about refusal. Refusing to let despair have the final word. Refusing to let darkness define you. Refusing to believe the story ends here. You are still here. And as long as you are still here, your miracle is still possible. Speak it again. Let the words echo into the dry places of your life. Say, God makes the impossible possible. Say it over your relationships, over your health, over your dreams, over your fears. Speak it into your disappointments and your doubts. Speak it until something shifts inside you, until your soul remembers what your mind has forgotten, that you are not alone, that you are not abandoned, that the author of your story is not finished writing, and what He writes is always redemptive, always purposeful, always worth the wait. When it comes, you will not just receive the miracle, you will understand the journey. You will see the fingerprints of God on every detour, every delay, every door that closed. You will realize that the path you cursed was actually the path that carried you, that the heartbreak was a holy breaking open, making space for a deeper joy, that the waiting was a sacred stretching, growing roots so your faith would stand when the winds came. You will see that what felt like death was actually resurrection in disguise. And then, with tears in your eyes and fire in your heart, you will look back, not with bitterness, but with awe. You will tell your story, and your story will not be about how strong you were, or how smart you were, or how lucky you were. It will be about how faithful God was, how He came through when nothing else could, how He made a way when there was no way, how He showed up right on time, not your time, but the right time. And you will not just speak of him, you will radiate him, because the miracle you carry will not just be an event, it will be a living testimony. So keep going, keep trusting, keep believing, even when you don't feel it, even when you don't see it, especially then, because faith that stands in the dark is the faith that shines the brightest. And you were born to shine. You were born to rise. You were born to walk in the miraculous, not because you are extraordinary, but because your God is. And when the world asks you how you survived, how you kept going, how you made it through the fire without being consumed, you will smile with a knowing too deep for words. You will touch the places where the wounds used to be. You will point not to yourself, but upward. And you will say, with humility and holy fire, and God made the impossible possible. And those words will echo far beyond your story. They will awaken faith in places where it has long been silent. They will stir courage in the weary. They will bring light to those still walking in their night, because your miracle was never just for you, it was for them too. You were chosen not just to be blessed, but to be a blessing, to be proof that God still moves, that hope is still real, that love still wins. So say it one more time, not because you have to, but because now you want to, because now you know it's true, because now it's written on your spirit, and God makes the impossible possible. And with that truth wrapped around your soul like armor, you will walk into the unknown with peace, into the future with joy, into every battle with confidence. For you are not alone, you never have been, and your story is just beginning.